So today's class is in honor of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's 120th birthday. So, a Rebbe, even though the Rebbe may not physically be on this earth, we still celebrate his life and his teachings and the mission, which we all keep. So this coming Monday is the Yud Aleph Nisan, the 11th day of the Hebrew month of Nisan. It's the Lubavitcher Rebbe's birthday. And through the Pesach class that we're going to share today, I will, of course, share teachings of the Rebbe and hopefully one or two beautiful stories about the Rebbe, which I think you'll love. And, many times we share beautiful stories about the Rebbe because the Rebbe was, in our generation, one of the greatest, if the greatest, the Moses of our generation, I would say. And the Rebbe empowered Jews and even non-Jews. Remember the story with Shirley Chisholm I shared with you a few months ago?
Yes.
And most of all, the Rebbe empowered the Jewish woman. As a teenager, I would sit in 770 listening to the Rebbe's talks called Farbrengens. And the Rebbe spoke about the greatness of the Jewish girl and the Jewish woman. This is what I heard week in and week out. And grew up feeling a sense of empowerment on how wonderful and beautiful and our inner strength, how every person on earth, every Jewish woman on earth can use her energy to change the world. So growing up with that teaching and that education really, really empowers you to know and feel how you can affect a change in your little corner of the universe, in your home, in your family, in your friends' community. So today we're going to talk about Pesach edition, tips and tricks. How do you enjoy a really liberating and joyous Pesach? Because what happens when the word Pesach comes to mind? Diane, best expression. We all go into panic mode. I called my sister yesterday. I said, Chani, I'm about to kasher my oven. I'm cooking already, which was a joke. I never cooked till the day before, so she burst out laughing. She says, wow, you're way ahead of the game. But it evokes for everyone a little fear and trepidation. You have to clean out the whole house. You have to change over the dishes and the pots and the pans and cover the counters. And then the night before Pesach, hide 10 pieces of bread in baggies and search for them and burn them the next day and shop and buy. It's very intense, Pesach, right? Mm-hmm. Physically intense. I mean, Hanukkah, the most intense part is making latkes. Purim, giving out shalach manos, right? Yom Kippur, fasting. But Pesach, 8 days, no Cheerios, unless it's Pesach Cheerios, no bread, matzah only, and so on. But I want to share with you today, I hope, insights into really how we can tap into one of the most energetic, beautiful, uplifting, liberating, and joyous holidays of the entire year, Pesach. Do you know that Pesach has 3 names? The first name, who knows the first name? We eat it on Pesach. Chag HaMatzos, the holiday of matzahs. The next name, Zman Cherusenu, the holiday of freedom. And the last name is the holiday of, the universal name. You can unmute. Pesach.
Yes.
Pesach. You're never going over to your friend and go, Diane, are you going to celebrate Chag HaMatzot? And she'll go, what? You're going to say, Carrie, you're going to celebrate Zman Cherusenu? You say, how's your Passover going? You ready for Passover? Did you see what Stop and Shop has for Passover? The universal name issued by the Talmud, the Talmudic sages, is the one Pesach, Passover. And soon we'll discuss why that's the name we use. Why don't we use the name Chag HaMatzos? Zman Cherusenu. Why do we use Chag HaPesach? These 3 names define on personal growth. If you want to use one holiday that really taps into personal growth, psychological insights, therapy, analysis of our personal outlook on life. Pesach is that holiday. Pesach is that holiday. So today I hope to tap in a little bit of all the different things, the names, the energy of Pesach, the therapy of Pesach, and so on and so forth. And the 4 children of Pesach, which are just phenomenal to talk about. So let's start with asking everybody here, why do you celebrate Pesach? What in the holiday of Pesach is meaningful to you? We're going to start with Diane. Diane, why do you celebrate Pesach? Tell us.
It connects me with my ancestors, the ancient people. I feel like I'm living. It brings me to the present. It's not they were brought out of Egypt. We were brought out of Egypt. I love that part.
Beautiful. It says, "B'chol dar v'dar chayav adam l'roises atzmakili yotzim Mitzrayim." In every generation, you have to look at yourself like you left Egypt. And why? We'll discuss soon why. That's beautiful. Who else wants to share? Anyone else? Carrie?
It's tradition. It's just like it's what you do. You don't even think about it.
Tradition. Dun, da, da, dun, dun. Fiddler on the roof. Okay. Why do
I feel like it's a renewal of life. It's a starting over. It's like cleaning the slate clean, of like getting rid of the chametz and getting rid of all the past of the year and starting fresh again.
Oh, that's Kim. Beautiful.
Yes.
Very good. Good. That's beautiful. Jane, you want to share?
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's such a big part for me of being Jewish. Yes, it's a commandment. We have to celebrate and remember. But I mean, I grew up with it, obviously. So, and the Seder's we had was so long. We used to cry because it was just too long. It was, 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd be, oh, please let us go. But it's such a big part, and I get to do it. I guess I get to create that with my family. I don't want to say my way because there's a certain way to do it, but I could use my own style in it to make the holiday enjoyable.
That's beautiful. And good morning, Margaret. And I'm going to touch on that because I had written in my email, if you have any questions, send them in. And we got a few questions that I'm going to address. And one of them is about how some people, the leader of the Seder, drolls on and on till the middle of the night, and the rest of the family is ready to chalish and faint.
Yeah.
Like one person said, and my grandpa, it says the same thing every year for 22 years. Does anybody else want to share why they celebrate Pesach? Or what did Pesach gives you? Margaret, you want to share? No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I wish my son were with us this year, but it's a time to remember and to be part of a tradition of 5,000 years. I mean, it's amazing.
Beautiful. So again, tradition. So people celebrate Pesach for many different reasons. And it's very interesting that really, you have to say, in the world today, even Jews who say, well, I'm not so connected, I'm not so religious, I'm not so Jewish, are going to a Pesach Seder. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So I want to tap into a few very beautiful insights about Pesach, and then we'll go to some practical aspects, like we said, tips and tricks if you're interested, and your questions and your insights. But I want to tap into a few beautiful things about Pesach. Like I said a few seconds ago, Pesach is not only a holiday that happened 3,000 years ago. Pesach is a holiday that symbolizes and was in actuality liberation from slavery. The Jews were slaves for 210 years. And lo and behold, Moshe came and took them out of slavery with God's miracles and God leading the way, of course. So it's not only something that happened thousands of years ago, and that's a great reason to celebrate because our past history is our present history, but also because every holiday, the Kabbalah tells us, every holiday's energy is recreated when we celebrate that holiday. So when you celebrate Pesach, you can tap into the energy of liberation. Mitzrayim comes from the Hebrew word limitation, things that hold us back in life. Pesach brings the energy to free ourselves of things that hold us back in our lives. Trauma, emotions, hurt, pain, anything that holds you back in life. Cowardice, you're afraid, fear, people around us who sometimes are toxic. Pesach has the energy to allow us to tap in to the energy of freeing oneself from one's personal imprisonment, one personal slavery, an addiction, a bad habit, a person we shouldn't be around, a relationship that's unhealthy, any circumstance in our lives that's holding us back from being the best version of ourselves, from being happy in our lives. Pesach gives you that energy. There's a time, those 8 days of Pesach, when you're crunching on that matzah, it's not only you're crunching on the matzah, you're tapping into an energy that allows you to free yourself. But you have to be open to that energy. You have to experience that energy. How? By celebrating Pesach, by having the Seder, and we'll soon discuss how. By reading the Haggadah, by singing the songs, by cooking the food, eating the food, laughing with your family. Anything you do, and the center of it is Pesach, allows you to experience the energy of Pesach. But you have to be in it to win it. That's how it works. So how do we tap into that energy of freedom? How do we open ourselves up to liberating ourselves from the things that hold us back in life? And we all know what those things are, and we all have those things. Some of us have us in large scale, some of us have us in small scale. We all have things that, oh my gosh, how do I get rid of this yoke? How can I get rid of this burden in my life? I just want to add that freedom is not about saying, I don't want any restrictions. I don't want any rules in my life. I don't want any regulations in my life. I'm a free person. Freedom is not about that there's no boundaries in life. Freedom is about within those boundaries which are necessary in your life, you can experience even a greater freedom. Boundaries means a lot of people say, look, why does God have to tell me what to do? I'm an intelligent, logical, smart person. I don't need those restrictions from that Torah, that ancient book. For those, the Torah is like the guidebook for you to express your true self, your true freedom. Like take a goldfish out of its little fish tank. What happens? The fish is very calm in your little fish bowl on the counter. Did you ever notice? You even wonder, isn't the fish bored? The fish has no one to talk to. As soon as you throw some food in, it gobbles it up. And what? Maybe the fish needs a little action, right? It's too restricted in its little bowl. So you pull the goldfish out of the bowl, and lo and behold, it starts flailing and jumping. And wow, now the fish has experienced freedom. Look at it. It's so excited to be out of the fish bowl. 5 minutes later, it can't survive out of the water.
It dies.
Right. Its life, its true freedom is within its natural environment. So you can't take a Torah out of a Jew and say, now I'm free. True freedom is within your environment, where you can truly find yourself, express yourself within, yes, sometimes boundaries, because boundaries are necessary in life. If you have no boundaries, you're lost in space. Gravity gravitates, holds you, anchors you to this universe. There's no gravity. Imagine if we were all free falling. It's fun for a little while, but think about your life. Could you even give a kiss to anybody? Oh, let me give you a kiss, honey. 1 minute, you're floating away. So the Torah is like gravity. It anchors us to this universe. So when you think about freedom, don't think about, oh, I'm free, free to be me, free to be me, but you need boundaries and you need borders. Then you're truly free. A fish out of a fishbowl, yes, but how long can it survive? So let's go into the Haggadah a little bit. You know, there's 15 steps, 15 therapeutic steps, 15 things we do at the Seder. Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachza, Maitzi, Matzah, Mara, Kairach, Shulchan, Aruch, Tzafon, Beirach, Hallel.
Wow.
That's how fast your Seder has to go. No dawdling. No dawdling. Get to the meal as soon as possible. Then tell the leader of the Seder, when everyone is munching on their delicious roasted chicken with potatoes and blintzes and matzo ball soup, and they're relaxed, now you can give your 12-hour sermon. Not during the first 4 steps. Move it along. Say a little points, move it along when everyone is drinking, eating, full of food. Then you can go and start sermonizing. Okay? So, little advice to whoever's running the Seder in your home. So, now it's a very funny thing. The last step, Nirtza, means acceptance. What does that mean, acceptance? You're accepting, God is saying to God, you have accepted my Seder? It's over? And it's a very strange last step. Every step is something. Kaddish, you're making Kiddush. Orchatz, washing your hands, right? Shulchan Aruch, Hallel, you're praising God. Beirach, you're blessing, you're saying grace after meals, and you're drinking another cup of wine. You have the maror, you eat the maror, you have the hillel sandwich, you have the matzah, you wash your hands again, blah, 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 right? What's this last final step of the Seder? Nirtza. You look in the Haggadah, what's Nirtza? Dad, what do I do now? Mom, what's up? You say, Nirtza, God has accepted my Seder. There's no action. What, is it even necessary? What do you mean? God didn't accept your Seder? God didn't like your Seder? Your Seder wasn't good enough? But this is an unbelievable insight that I saw based on Jewish mysticism. It's not only you're saying to God, God, did you like my Seder? God accepted my Seder. You're saying to yourself that I accept my Seder. In life, we always doubt ourselves. We undermine ourselves. I'm not good enough. I could have done this. I should have said that. I should have gone here. I should have said that. I could have been this. I could have been that. And that is really the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, the negative energy within us that's undermining ourselves. We always want to be perfect. We always doubt ourselves, and doubting yourself constantly and undermining your own confidence and not feeling you're good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, this enough, courageous enough, that enough. You can't move forward in life because you're always thinking, well, maybe I should have said that. Maybe I should have done that. Maybe my Seder wasn't. Should I have invited her? She ruined the whole night. Why did I serve brisket and not chicken? Why did I do that? Why didn't I tell my son he can go to his friend? We're always doubting ourselves. As Jewish mothers, Jewish women, I'm sure you can relate to that. So what Nirtza is telling you at the end of your Seder, yes, God accepted your Seder. That I could tell you without a doubt. Because you were at a Seder, it doesn't matter. Did you accept your Seder? Do you accept yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I did good. I did good. I feel good. Allow yourself to feel good. Nirtza's telling us, allow yourself to relish in your accomplishments. Even though they're small accomplishments at times, relish in who you are as a human being. That's what Nirtza is. 14 steps, and the 15th is telling yourself, hello, I did good. I am good. And this is a very important thing because how many times do we pat ourselves on the back? So this is the 15th step, accepting. God accepted your Seder, but did you accept your Seder? That's the question. Do you accept yourself? My brother, Yosef Yitzhak Jacobson, he's a very world-renowned lecturer. He's something spectacular, and he told me the story, and he told the story at a single mother writes him this heartbreaking letter. She writes, Rabbi Jacobson, I want to know if I fulfilled the mitzvah of Seder last year. And she writes the following story, that she's divorced and her husband has most of the custody of the children for whatever reason, 4 children. But for this Pesach, they were going to be coming to her. And she cooked and she cleaned and she baked cakes and she bought them their favorite snacks and gifts, afikomen prizes. She said she couldn't believe how beautifully she prepared for her children. Literally 4 hours before they were supposed to come to the house, her husband, who's a very narcissistic person, she writes, calls her, hi, sorry, the kids are not coming. They can't come for Pesach to you. And without any discussion, he hangs up the phone.
Oh,
That's awful.
oh,
Wow.
To my brother, she says, you have no idea the heartbreak, the depression, the pain I experienced at that moment.
oh.
The table was set.
Wow.
The rooms were set. She says, I couldn't even have the energy to call a friend and say, listen, I have to come to you for the Seder. So she said, I sat alone. I made my Seder, barely. I cried through every step. I have to tell you, I want to ask you, did I celebrate Pesach this year? I want to know, did I celebrate Pesach? Because I cried the whole Seder. What kind of Seder was that?
Oh.
So heartbreaking. I have chills right now. I'm sorry. I'm freaking out.
But I want to share with you why I'm telling you the story, not to make you upset. Because when I heard the story from my brother, I was crying. It's so upsetting to me. My brother wrote her back, beautiful. He said to her, not only did you celebrate your Seder, you celebrated your Seder on the highest level. At times we ask ourselves, did I celebrate my Seder? How could I was upset, I was depressed. You celebrated your Seder because you sat down at that Seder and you said, Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilos. And you drank a cup of wine and you ate a piece of matzah. You celebrated your Seder because when a Jew sits down by the Seder, it doesn't matter. Almighty God sees you there and knows your circumstances and sometimes knows your pain. You celebrated your Seder. Why it had to happen to you, my brother writes her, I don't know. And it's horrible what happened to you. But trust me, you celebrated your Seder more than anybody celebrated your Seder. Which brings me now to a story about the Rebbe, which I just remembered. In 1988, the Rebbetzin passed away. That's Nirtza, by the way. You accept yourself. You celebrated the Seder. So the Rebbe, last years of his life, was with the Rebbetzin. Who was at their Seder? The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. They didn't have any children. When the Rebbetzin passed away, people realized the Rebbe is going to be all alone that year for Pesach. So the Rebbe's house butler, whatever it's called, a Heismensch, he was a house butler, was my husband's first cousin husband, the very Halberstam. Her husband, Chesed, was the Rebbe's personal house manager, like. So his son Ari was a little boy. He was the one killed on the Brooklyn Bridge by the terrorists. And they named the Brooklyn, the Ari.
Yeah.
Drive right over the bridge.
Yep.
Ari Halberstam Bridge. That's her son. So Chesed takes his little boy to the Rebbe, and the little boy Ari says to the Rebbe, my mother doesn't want you to be alone. Please join us for the Seder. Their house was on the same block of 770, the Rebbe's synagogue. So the Rebbe smiled at Ari and said, I'm not alone. And when the secretaries, after services, the night of Pesach, try to hang out with the Rebbe and kind of move into his apartment in 770 in the shul, the Rebbe made a Seder there, and they wanted to try to stay. The Rebbe force them to go home to their families. They try to stall, they try to sit down there and try to move in and like keep the Rebbe company, and the Rebbe sent them away. And I always wondered about the story with the Rebbe, and I always broke my heart that the Rebbe sat alone at a Seder. But you know what I'm thinking? The Rebbe is the Moses of our generation. When the Rebbe sat alone at a Seder and celebrated his Seder, the Rebbe wasn't only celebrating his own Seder, the Rebbe was creating a pathway, a spiritual and spark pathway for any Jew in the world that would one day have to sit by themselves. Remember, we discussed how the matriarchs and patriarchs, whatever they did, was a cutting through the jungle so that we should have a clear path in our lives, clear path for self-sacrifice, clear path for how to approach challenges in life. This is what a Moses of the generation does. They clear the pathway for every circumstance in life so that when we and you and I, God forbid, have to encounter a situation where we are forced to be alone, we are forced to sit by ourselves, we're forced to encounter a challenge that's overwhelming, we're able to overcome. You know why? Because the Rebbe sat by himself. And when a Moses sits by themselves, that's not only that they're sitting by themselves. That energy, that spark cuts through the spiritual hurdles, the spiritual boundaries that will allow us to one day, if we have to, encounter something and overcome it. That's what a Rebbe is. That's what a Moses of a generation is. And that's what my brother wrote her, that at times you sit alone, but that oneness with God is the greatest gift you can give God. So Nirtza is telling us, God accepted your Seder. I could tell you, whatever Seder you did, whether you read English, Hebrew, or you don't read Hebrew, whether you read the whole Haggadah or you didn't read the whole Haggadah, whether you fought with your brother during the Seder because you remembered old hurts, or you didn't fight with your brother during the Seder, you have celebrated your Seder because you were at the Seder. That's the greatest gift you're giving God, that you sat at a Seder. Sometimes, yes, it's in pain. Hopefully it's in happiness and joy with Diane's delicious brisket, first cut, 10 pounds. I gave away a secret. But that is the greatest joy you can give Almighty God and yourself. So those are the 15 steps of the Seder. And every one of those steps brings us to a new awareness and closeness to our psychological well-being. And we'll discuss a little bit of that. But before that, I want to discuss the 4 children at the Seder. Last week, I mentioned very briefly, but I want to reiterate because I feel it's very powerful. One of our participants, Diane, asked, give me something for the Seder. So one pivotal thing I love is the fact of the 4. There's 4 cups of
Wine.
There's 4 questions. There's 4 ways expressed in the Haggadah of how God took us out of Egypt. Lakachti, v'tzalti, v'heveti. I have to look it up. 4 expressions of freedom that God took us out of Egypt, how God took us out of Egypt. And there's 4 children we talk about in the Seder, right? The wise one, the contrary one, the simple one, and the one that doesn't know what to ask or doesn't know how to ask. What's this for? What's this for? Diane, what's this for?
What's this for? I don't know. No.
Very good. What's this for? I don't know what it's for.
I can only guess. I don't know.
Yes.
All right. 4 directions on the compass of how you live your life: north, south, east, west.
Beautiful.
4 elements on the earth. I don't know.
The 4 matriarchs. Diane, that was by the way, Diane, I'm sure your answer is also correct. I'm sure there is a whole Kabbalistic insight to the 4 directions of the universe. I just didn't see it yet, but it's a good answer. It's the 4 matriarchs. The whole foundation of Pesach, of liberation, came in the memory of the Jewish women were we redeemed from Egypt. And the passage ends with B'schusam yigalu la'asid. In the future, now we will see Mashiach and the redemption through the power of the Jewish woman. So the whole Seder's foundation, you open up the Haggadah, it's a feminist version. The Haggadah is about the feminine energy, the 4. 3 matzahs, masculine energy. But everything else, the feminine energy. Because you have 3 matzahs by the Seder plate, right? Cohen, Levi, Israel.
Why is matzah masculine? Why is matzah masculine?
I'll tell you what. The 3 is the 3 patriarchs. Well, first of all, simplistically, we got to give the guys a chance too to express themselves at the Seder. Can't only be the women, you know. But the other reason is that who you are is feminine energy. What you do is masculine energy, says the Kabbalah. So masculine energy, what tribe are you from? Are you an Israelite? Are you a Kohen? Are you a Levi? Is masculine energy. What you do, what tribe you're from, but who you are you Jewish? The mother. Because the mother gives birth to you, carries you. So feminine energy is who you are, masculine energy is what you do. So the 3 matzahs, Cohen, Levi, Yisrael, symbolizes the 3 segments of the Jewish people, the 3 different types of tribes, masculine energy. It doesn't really mean that the matzah itself is only masculine energy. It means the 3 matzahs are symbolic of masculine energy. But also maybe as a joke, matzah symbolizes what characteristic in human nature that we aspire to? Humility. So women by nature, I think, are more humble. So maybe the matzah is that we got to work on the masculine energy. The aggression has to be reduced to a little more humility, perhaps, because masculine energy by nature is more brute strength. Feminine nature by nature is more light, subtle energy, subtle strength. That's why women light Shabbos candles. It's their mitzvah to usher in Shabbat and holidays. And traditionally the men make kiddush on the wine because wine is symbolic of brute strength. You drink too much, you become aggressive. Light, feminine energy is subtle. And the two come together. Which doesn't mean you can't make kiddush. And doesn't mean a man can't light Shabbos candles. It means that's the predominant traditions that we follow. By the Seder, everyone makes kiddush. 4 cups of wine, everybody has to drink, ladies and gents. So how did we go off on the thing? Oh, so the 4 children. So 4 is symbolic of the 4 matriarchs. The women are the foundation of the universe, the world, the home. I mean, like between you and me, when I'm in a bad mood, everyone goes running. Ma's in a bad mood, everybody hide out. They literally hide. So we kind of also set the tone for the day, for the night, for the meal, for the Seder. We have a lot of power. Positive energy is catchy. I remember one Pesach, I got up early in the morning and I cooked the whole Pesach and my kids rolled out of bed. And there's a lot of them. They rolled out of bed 11:30, one rolled out of bed. Ma, why didn't you wake us up to help you? I said, because you were sleeping so nicely. Let's keep a peaceful atmosphere in the house. Do I need a grumpy daughter peeling my potatoes? Or a grumpy son doing the horseradish? I want everyone to be happy. We set the tone. By the way, don't listen to me. Wake up your kids. Get them chart. I have a chart on my refrigerator. It's not so simple. I have a chart. That one year I was a little bit righteous. But don't worry, they worked later. I got them going. I'm saying everybody has to sign up for a job. There's no such a thing. Every man, woman, child, and infant gets a job in my house. I don't care who you are. There's a chart, you sign up, and you do your job. Anyway, we'll talk about that soon. So that's the number 4. And now let's go into the 4 children. And if you look at a lot of the traditions of the Haggadah, it's all about the children. It says, don't dawdle in shul after services, run home and start the Seder. Why? Because you want the children not to be drowsy during the Seder. You want them to participate. And all the weird and strange things we do at the Seder, if you look at the Haggadah footnotes, it says to keep the children involved. Dip the maror in the charoses, dip the vegetable in the salt water, break the matzah into 5 pieces, hide away the afikomen, all to keep the kids involved. But if you look at this much on a deeper level, what happens if you have no children? Maybe your children are grown and moved away. Maybe they're not around. Maybe you're single. There's many reasons people don't have children at their table. Maybe I don't want the kids. They're so messy. Kabbalah tells us the children in the Haggadah, the 4 children that we read about, are not only the children in age. It's you and me. We're the children in the Haggadah. We're the 4 children in the Haggadah. We're the ones, the child who asks the Manishtan is you and me. We have to all ask the 4 questions. As a matter of fact, it's a custom that before you ask the 4 questions, you say, Father, I want to ask you the 4 questions. But like my father passed away, who am I asking? Almighty God. Because you're a child at the Seder table too. You're a child of God. So you ask the 4 questions, and you're the child the Haggadah is talking about. Because in life, if you want to get to your good place, if you want to liberate yourself and tap into that energy we spoke about, all the therapists are going to tell you have to go back in time to when you were a child, to when you felt good, you felt pure, you felt happy, you felt loved, you felt appreciated, you felt taken care of. Like Freud calls it the id. You have to get back to the id, not the yid, the id. Back to the yid too. You have to go back to that place in time or in your life when you were a child. Nothing could touch you at that time. Nothing touched you. You weren't prejudiced. You weren't biased. You weren't a racist yet. You weren't opinionated. You didn't hate this one and love that one. You didn't hate that music and love this one. You weren't vehement. You didn't have a political party. You weren't traumatized. You weren't bullied. You have to go back in time when you felt good, when you felt happy, when you felt like that pure child in your mama's arms. And once you're in that happy, joyous place, then you start uncovering the layers of the pain, the sorrow, the unfortunate circumstances, everything that happened in your life that made you who you are today. So the Haggadah is saying the child in the Haggadah is you. Find that happy child within you and start your journey at this Seder. Ask the 4 questions. And when you hear about the 4 children, think about these 4 children, because these 4 children, these 4 types are 4 mindsets that each and every one of us have at different times in our life, all at once, or some together. So if you read the Haggadah, literally, there's 4 children, and they're 4 different people at your Seder table, 4 different relatives you happen to know, 4 types of friends, 4 types of Jews, 4 types of the 4 could be many different things, but it's also 4 mindsets that you have in your life. What are the 4 children? Who could go through the 4 children or the 4 people? Let's read them.
The wise one.
Good.
Simple son, the simple son.
Simple
The
one.
wicked,
Wicked. And what's the last one?
the one who doesn't know.
Exactly. The one who doesn't know.
The one who doesn't know what to ask.
Right.
And I like to call them a little bit different names. I hope you don't mind. The first one's the Chacham. I call them the intellectual. The second one we call the Rasha. I call the contrary one, or the depressed one. The next one is called the Tam. The simple one, I call him the selfish person. And the fourth one, She'eni Yedei Elisho, the one who doesn't know how to ask. It's not that they don't know how to ask. I call them that pathetic one. They don't want to bother asking. They're uninspired. Now, if you think about your life, do you have times in your life where you feel very intellectual? At times you feel very contrary. At times you feel very selfish. And at times you feel very uninspired and apathetic in your life. Raise your hand if you never experienced any of these four things. Okay. I didn't raise my hand. That was me scratching my head. We all feel those things. So Chassidus asks, how do we know it's four mindsets? Maybe it only means four people, four children, four people, four types of people. And the answer, because it says, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Echad She'enu Yedei Lishal. Why does the Haggadah write? One is wise, one is contrary, one is simple, one doesn't know how to ask. What's the one? So that one shows it's one person. Otherwise, it would say, four children, Chacham, Rasha, Tam, Sheni, Yedei, Lishal. Why the word Echad before every one of them? To show us that it really is one. It's the oneness within you. It's one person. Four mindsets, four attitudes, four moments in your life, or 4 years in your life, because sometimes it's not only one day. Sometimes it's years and years you're down and out, disconnected. So now, what I want to share with you is, what does the Haggadah say about each of these four children, four mindsets? And what is the response? What's the response to you when you're feeling apathetic? What's the response to me when I'm feeling contrary, rebellious, angry, disenchanted, disconnected? What's the response to me when I'm feeling so logical and intellectual and nothing else matters? Faith is not on the table. And what's the response to me when I'm feeling selfish, narcissistic, self-absorbed? And what's the response to me when I'm saying, oh, I'm so uninspired, I can't do this, I'm so apathetic. Pesach is coming, but I have to tell you, all I'm thinking about is a good novel in my warm bed. Cleaning is not for me. I'm laughing this year because I'm so behind. I don't know, I just can't get motivated to get the crumbs out of my couch this year. I don't know why. It's a crummy situation. But anyway, so what's the question that the four children ask in the Haggadah? And what's the answer? Should we do this?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we do this, let's take a deep breath. And does anybody want to ask any questions, make any comments before we delve in to the questions and the response to these four mindsets, or sometimes paths or attitudes of life?
I would guess that what you do is the opposite. You're
For
feeling
example,
narcissistic, go out and do a good deed for somebody.
very good.
Yes.
That's very practical. If you're so self-absorbed, you have to go and see what you could do for somebody else once in a while.
Yeah, I have that
I read something very beautiful, and I know it's true. When you wake up in a terrible mood, when you wake up in a bad mood, a depressed mood, I don't know, how do you call it? Your response is always, "Ay vey, let me just stay in bed," or the best thing to do is pick up the phone or go out and volunteer or help somebody or call someone. So you take away the attention from yourself and you put it on someone else, and it really helps change your mind, your mood for the day. I don't know, that always works for me. I read it somewhere and I see that it works. But anyway, let's go into the Haggadah. You ready?
Yes.
Ready? Okay, good. So it starts off with the wise child. Chacham Mahu Amer. I'm reading from the Haggadah. Maha Eidos HaChukim HaMishpatim Asher Tziva Hashem Elokeinu Eschem. The wise one says, what are these mitzvahs that God gave us? Now, the mitzvahs I can understand. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't lie, don't be jealous, don't covet what doesn't belong to you, and all those very practical, logical mitzvahs that we do anyway for normal, civilized human beings. But chukim, decrees, really, does God care if I eat a little crab and shrimp dipped in a little red sauce? I mean, really, why? What's these decrees that we don't understand? Does God really care about me immersing in the mikveh before I have intimacy? Come on, it's a pool of water. What could it be already? Does God really care if the Kohen sprinkles the ashes on someone who's impure and then they become pure, like, what are these mitzvahs that don't make any logical sense to me? What do you need them for? What do you need it for? This is what the intellectual, logical person asks. I get the regular mitzvahs, they're fine and dandy. That's civilization, but everything else, what do we need it for? Why do we need these mitzvahs that God did not give us a reason for it? Why can't I wear linen and wool together in my suit? Does God care if there's a little bit of linen in my suit? Really, come on. This is what the wise person is, because he's an intellectual. Everything is logic. If it's not logical, it's not for him or her. So what do you answer him? Something really bizarre. This is what the Haggadah says. You know what you answer him? Ein maftirin achar Pesach afikomen. You know what? After you eat the afikomen at the Seder, my dear logical intellectual friend, the mitzvah is after you eat the afikomen matzah, right? You say grace after meals.
Mhm.
You finish Hallel, which is praise, the prayers of praise, and then you don't eat any food after the afikomen. You can drink, but you don't eat. Why? So the Torah tells us because you want to keep the taste of the afikomen matzah in your mouth as long as possible. So this is the answer you're giving the logical guy. Guess what, sir or ma'am? You know what my answer is to you? After you eat the afikomen, the law is don't eat anything afterwards. You can drink, but don't eat. Why? Because God said, I want you to keep the taste of the matzah in your mouth as long as possible. Now let me ask you a question. How is that an answer exactly? He's saying, what do we need the decrees? Why do we need the illogical mitzvahs? Why do we need all these weird mitzvahs that don't make any sense to us? What do we need it for? And you're telling him, hey, guess what? After you have the afikomen, don't need anything else. What is this bizarre answer? Anybody know? Why is this an answer? Maybe sit him down, explain what those mitzvahs are about, take out Maimonides, analyze together. Why are you telling him that after afikomen you shouldn't eat? So does anybody want to offer an answer? Why that's the answer to the logical one? Jane, you were saying something?
I was just thinking that maybe you have the taste of the mitzvah lingering a little
Very
longer,
good. Keep going.
and the fact that you are connected, and that might give you the feeling of a higher level of spirituality somehow.
Very, very good. Brilliant. You want to take over the class? So Kabbalah, Hasidus, Jewish mysticism, which is Kabbalah, explains something very much along with the line what Jane said, that the whole answer you're giving the Chacham and yourself, when you're the intellectual, is you're trying to explain to them, defining them, your relationship with God. Your relationship with God is not only based on logic. I won't kill because God said not to kill, and it makes sense to me. I won't steal because God said not to steal, but it also makes sense to me. Faith in God, your relationship with God is based on even things you don't understand. We don't want to reduce our relationship to God to a narrow perspective of only my logic. My intellectual understanding is how I understand God. Our relationship with God, which is called faith in God, is the sweetest taste in the world because we are submitting ourselves. It's the submissiveness to understanding that we can't understand God. So the taste of the afikomen is symbolic of the sweetest taste in the world. What's the sweetest taste in the world? Faith in God. Our relationship with God based on faith, not on understanding. So what we're telling the intellectual is, after you eat afikomen, don't eat anything else because you want to keep the taste in your mouth. What is that taste? It's called faith. Matzah is the bread of faith because the Jews left Egypt not knowing what's going to happen, what's going to be, only because they believed in God. And that's humility. So you're telling the intellectual, The sweetest taste you're ever going to taste is faith. And you know what? I'm going to add one more little tidbit, that for all type A personalities that think we run the world and that everything we do, it's my fault, I could have done this, I shouldn't have done that. When you have a little faith, it takes a tremendous burden off your life, because at the end of the day, God runs the world, not you. God runs the universe. You don't run the world. I don't run the world. Putin doesn't run the world. God runs the world. So what you're telling the intellectual, it's great to be logical. It's great to be brilliant. I'm glad you're Einstein, but guess what? There's a taste of faith that you can't replace with logic. That's what you tell the Chacham, and that's what you tell yourself. And now we're going to come to a tough one, the contrary one. It's Russia, but it's the contrary one. You know who it is, really? It's the person in life who you meet, who is alienated, depressed, disconnected, alone in their world. That's the Russia. That's the Russia. When you look at the pictures, they show a Russia, with a big mustache and a mean face. But truth is, the Russia is not evil or wicked. The Russia is a disconnected person. And sometimes, like we said, it's me. I'm disconnected. I'm depressed. I'm unhappy. I'm contrary. I'm alienated from everybody. I feel disconnected. I feel alone. I feel misunderstood. That's the Russia. And what does the Russia say? Very similar to what the wise one says. Lachem. What is this work? What is this that you're doing? You, not me, you. So what's your response to him? And also, let me ask you a question. Why is he so terrible? He didn't ask any different than the wise one. Why are we calling him the Russian and the other one the intellectual? They just basically asked the same thing.
Yes,
It's his attitude towards it. He's just angry.
So he's saying he has a bad attitude?
Yeah, it's not like an intellectual question. It's just him or her feeling angry.
Very good. Very good. Who else wanted to say? Diane, what'd you say?
He's challenging us.
He's very good. Excellent. He's challenging us, or we're challenging ourselves.
It's because he wants things to be the way he wants things to be that he's angry, because he hasn't given over to have faith.
Okay, good. But so what's our response? Listen to so let me take a step back. So the Haggadah is saying that it's not that he's called contrary because his question is similar. It's because, like Carrie said, it depends who asks the question. A teacher has two students, her pet student and then her rebellious student who always fails every test, the troublemaker. So when they could ask the same question, but who asks it, that's the difference. That's what the Haggadah is telling us. Who asks it makes a big difference in life. Unfortunately, that's how we react to people. The well-behaved child says, Ma, can I have $50 to go shopping? Of course, my honey. The one that doesn't lift a finger, go, what, I'm going to give you $50? You never lift a finger in the house. So it's who asks the question. But what's the response is most, to me, mind-boggling. Awful response. Listen what the response is. It's so sad. Va'afata, what do you say to him? Hakeshinov. Knock him in the teeth. And say to him, Asa Hashem li b'tzeisi Mitzrayim li v'loi loi ve'il ha'yasham lo ha'negal. You say, guess what, my dear contrary one? If you would have been in Egypt, guess what? You would not have been taken out. Now let me ask you, really? Is this a lesson in education? Whether you're talking to yourself as the contrary person or you're talking to someone else with that mindset. You say, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. I'm going to punch you in the teeth. And guess what, honey bunch? If you would have been in Egypt, you would have remained there. You wouldn't have even been taken out with the rest of us. Look wow. The whole Torah is built on education with compassion, kindness, and love. Remember Noah, when he sent the raven didn't show dry land, and dove brought back the leaf, the olive leaf, because dove, kindness. The world is built on kindness and compassion. How is it? What? You're going to punch him in the mouth and tell him, you would have been left behind? How is that a response to the contrary one? Since when we have a rebellious child or a difficult child, this is how you write, I'm going to punch you in the mouth? And guess what, honey? You would have been left behind? Home alone? What do you think? Now you know why you need Kabbalah and Hasidus, because it really analyzes it for you, and the commentaries, they really tell you what's going on here.
Is it that you have to meet them where they live? Like,
okay.
That, I mean, if you're approaching someone like that with kindness, obviously the world around them that's kind isn't working. So you have to show them a little, wake up kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe. Anybody else want to offer anything? So first of all, haka eshinav doesn't mean punch him in the mouth. It means something totally different. It means blunt his teeth, which everybody makes that mistake. It's not punch him in the mouth. It's blunt his teeth, and I'll explain that in a minute. So you have to take a step back. What you're saying to the contrary person is this. Listen, we were slaves in Egypt. We went through persecution. We went through the horrors of slavery for 210 years. You know what kept us going in these terrible, terrible times? Our faith in God, our belief that God will take us out of this horrible, terrible place of Egypt. It's all about your attitude. With that kind of attitude, you're saying to the contrary, you cannot get out of your terrible place. You have to keep an upbeat, positive attitude that you can get through this. Because had we not had that positive attitude, that attitude of faith and perseverance and resilience, we would still be in Egypt. Mm-hmm. We would not have come out. So you're not telling him he wasn't taken out or she wasn't taken out. What you're telling the contrary one is that it is your attitude that will allow you to come out of slavery. You cannot come out of Egypt if you do not believe that you can come out of Egypt. You know what they say? You could take the slave out of Egypt, but you can't take Egypt out of the slave. Mm-hmm. It wasn't only taking a Jew out of Mitzrayim and saying, here's a Torah, guys. It took 10 makos. 10. Why 10? You ever wonder, why didn't God just do one big quickie and rip them out? Why 10? Because every one of those plagues emphasized a certain energy in the universe, a certain transformation of the mindset of the slave. You're not a slave. You're not a slave. You're not a slave. 10 times, you're not a slave. Now I know, you know what? I'm not a slave. I can leave this place. Remember, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
She comes to rescue her brother. He's chained up. He has been so demoralized, tortured, and made into feeling that he's less than nothing. He refuses to be rescued. Uh-huh. I hate to use secular culture to emphasize a point from the Torah, but that's what it is. The slave mentality is very, very oppressive. Think of people who were in captivity, who were brainwashed. It's a horrible experience to be taken out of that. You have to be deprogrammed, years and years of therapy and treatments to get out of it. Prisoners of war. If you watch any of those shows with prisoners of war, horrible. So here, what you're telling the contrary one, you have to get out of that attitude. Otherwise, you can't go out of Egypt. You wouldn't have come out because you cannot believe that you do not deserve to be freed. And that's why you have to take his bite out of the bark. Haka eshinav means take, the bark is worse than the bite. Here you have to take the bite, blunt his teeth, take out the bite from the bark. They fuse the situation by accepting that the bite is not really what matters here. It's the person. Deep down, this biting, angry, contrary, rebellious, disconnected person is really in pain, and you need to take the bite out of the bark. And there's a beautiful numerical value here. I'm going to read to you. The Hebrew word for teeth, shinav, is 366. The Hebrew word for wicked, rasha, is 570. If you remove the teeth from the rasha, you subtract 366 from 570, you end up with 204. If you want to check my math, if you have a calculator. What's the numerical value of 204? The word tzaddik, righteousness. Take the bite out of the rasha, you end up with a tzaddik. Take the bite, the anger, the misery, the disenchantment from the rasha, from the contrary one, from his teeth, so to speak, you end up with a righteous, kind, pure person, because deep down everybody's pure and good. Just life happens. Life, you were bullied, you were abused. Life happens, and that's why you're contrary. You're angry, you're bitter, you're upset, you're nasty. Look beyond the nastiness of the person. Look beyond the bitterness of the person. Find that place of them, that when you take out the teeth, you take out the bite, you end up with the tzaddik, with the righteous, pure soul, how they were meant to be. The child that you gave birth to, but is now, unfortunately, became who they are, or who we are. Sometimes we're that contrary person, the biting, nasty. Sometimes you make a comment and people are like, what? You said that? And you're like, oh, vey, why did I say that? Because you felt upset. You were angry. You lashed out. Bam! You let them have it. I can relate to that. I've done it so many times. Do I regret it? But that's what it is. Should we digest? Is it getting a little too heavy? We have a few more minutes.
No, very insightful. Yeah.
We have two more children, but it's already 11:05. So the question is, do you want to finish the two other children? Do you want to end off with a story? What is everybody's mood? Because I don't want to go beyond the time. Do we still want to do some tips and tricks?
Oh,
Tips and tricks is good.
that's important. That could be important at this point.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So now we discussed the two children, So let me ask you so tell me some questions you have. So we hear from the class, so we're in it together. What are some questions you have, or should I just talk about prepping for Pesach? Tell me, what is your interest?
Tips and tricks for.
Can you, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can you send us your
Yeah.
notes or your analysis of the other two questions? I think I'm taking notes so that I could perhaps bring these things up during the Seder, but it would be really good to have the other two.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, if we could,
Thank you.
yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes,
Mom.
I could send you. I said the other two are shorter a little bit because the second one was the most powerful analysis of the four personalities. So anybody want to ask any questions or have any? One question is, does God really care about the crumbs under your dining room table or under your cushion? People always ask me this question all the time. I get calls before Pesach. Do I really need to vacuum every part of the house? And I'm like, yes. Now, two very important things. Even if you're not so strict yet, you don't keep everything yet, go online to bethisraelchabad.org and sign the sale of chametz form, the sale of your leaven, which means that anything in your house that's chametz, your dishes, your pots, your Cheerios, leftover margarine, and whatever, chametz items, margarine may not necessarily be chametz, only whatever, that's in, and put it on, sell it. The rabbi sells it, it's free. It sells it to a non-Jew and buys it back after Pesach. What in essence it does not allow you to be liable for the sin and transgression of having chametz in your house, in your possession. So if you have a summer home, you rent a business, or your own home, sign away your chametz, so at least you're not halachically liable. Halachically means by Jewish law liable for the possession of that.
What is the website, Beth Israel? What is it?
Chabad.org. and click on the banner Passover and it says Passover services, sell your chametz, register for a Seder, buy gefilte fish. That's a joke. Yeah. So that's
Actually, I was going to ask you if there are any hacks to, well, I don't want to interrupt you on that, on the
No,
sale.
go ahead. That was all I wanted to mention, that's a very important pre-Passover mitzvah. Sign away your chametz. Again, you don't have to be the holy roller. You don't have to be perfect in your observance of Pesach, but sign away your chametz so at least you're not held liable for the possession. Like one person said, Freida, will he come into my cabinets? I said, no. We use a reliable guy that's been doing it for us for years. We sell him all the chametz forms. Literally a half an hour after Passover is over, he's at my husband's office and we buy it back from him for whatever the money is, $100, $50. No one is coming to take your makasa dishes, trust me. Nobody wants your Calphalon pots, and nobody wants your 10 boxes of Cheerios that you locked away. Okay, any other Pesach questions?
Yes. Oh,
Go ahead, yes.
I wanted to know if you had any hacks of things and places, good places to buy things to fill in for the Seder. My daughter is due with her third baby over the next few days. And I'm going to be taking care of her 3 and 4-year-old. And I'm just really not sure that I can cook all of this. I'm going to try, but I don't even know if it's smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. So if you want, I offer this to a lot of people. You can come to me and I will give you all the things for your Seder plate, ready to go. The shank bone, which you use a chicken neck. By the way, you don't use a real shank bone, only in the time of the temple. Use a chicken neck. It's called a gargle. The grated maror, the romaine lettuce, the egg, the boiled egg, and the charoset. You know, charoset is made from ground apples, ground pears, walnuts, and right before the Seder, you pour a little wine or grape juice to give it that reddish color. No need for anything else.
I'm talking about like serious food.
Oh, so serious food. Okay.
There's a
So
place we could buy anything.
there are caterers in the area. I can email you after Shabbos and they will, you can buy everything you want.
Yeah, not everything. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody has any suggestions? I'd love to hear also, if anyone has any good experiences also. Thank you.
Yeah, so you don't even have to cook nowadays. You can buy kosher lepesach, ready to go food. And that's why also we have our seders in the show. The families literally come, they take over 4 tables and they have their whole seder in the show and we provide all the food and we don't care. Whatever they want to do, they do. We're very accommodating, you know, because people don't want to prepare. They don't want the mess either, you know. So we do that. Any other questions? Go ahead, Diane.
It's so much a question, but I feel a tremendous responsibility to have the Seder. And Michael is so cute. I spoke to him last night and he said he's going to get a house. Now he's going to have a baby, God willing. And he said, next year, Mom, I'm going to run the Seder. I'm going to have the Passover. And I said, in the words of Marvin Rambo, my cousin who passed away, I said, you don't just get Passover. You know, it's a lot. And so it made me aware and I just want to fulfill it. But I guess from the beginning of the class, whatever I do, well, it'll be enough. So.
But also I want you to know that where do our children learn how to run a Seder? The customs and traditions from our parents. So when I married my husband, on his Seder plate, he put the white horseradish, you know, the grated horseradish on romaine lettuce, which is also a form of maror. And my house, like the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe's, we cut off the head of the horseradish, you know, the raw, and that was one of our marors on the Seder plate. So I said to my husband, you know, Chabad, the Rebbe did it like that. I know because my father would go to the Rebbe's Seder before he came home from shul. In the early days, you were able to watch the Rebbe Seder. That was in the early years when the Rebbe just became Rebbe. So my husband said, but my father didn't do it. I said, I know, but do me a favor, follow my father. So we do it that way. So the customs and traditions of our home are very important for the Seder. So if your father sat with a giant pillow, it's a custom with a giant pillow. So the customs are very, very important. This is what the family remembers. Even the adult children remember this. They all talk about all the fun things you do at the Seder, or the interesting things, or So these customs, don't poo-poo them. They're very, very important. So what is going to go back to Diane? Yes, when your son runs the Seder, he's going to emulate what you did at the Seder. What you did at the Seder. And you know what? One of the key things is to feed the family before the Seder. And in the afternoon, give a big lunch so no one is kvetchy and people enjoy the Seder. Don't be hung up on principles. Don't touch my kugelitz for the Seder. The only thing you don't eat before the Seder is the Seder food. You're not supposed to eat eggs, walnuts, apples, pears, matzah, maror, charoset before the Seder so it should have a fresh taste. It's a Seder food. But you could serve people gefilte fish, serve them a piece of kugel, put them a piece of chicken, give them a piece of, I don't know, a Pesach cake. Don't let your family come 7:30 at night because it starts so late, hungry and starving. Then it's going to be a very unhappy Seder. Feed everyone 3 o'clock. Make them mashed potatoes with fried onions, a piece of chicken, cake for dessert. Let them munch on other fruits and vegetables. Again, not the traditional Seder foods. And then you have a happy, pleasant Seder. No one is starving. Everyone is enjoying. That is, to me, the number one trick and tip of Pesach. Feed the family before. Have the food ready. No one is happy when they're miserable. And mean the adults, because, now my youngest is 22. Or my grandchildren. I always make a huge, I call it the Erev Pesach meal. Don't kvetch to me you're hungry. Go in the kitchen and eat before we light the Shabbos candle. Now, don't give it, I don't give at 6 o'clock because we're coming to the Seder at 7:30, 8 o'clock. You could do it, late afternoon. That's my trick. And at the Seder itself, I have to tell you, I always give the kids food. At our public Seder, as soon as we finish the vegetable and salt water, the staff is told to serve everybody a piece of gefilte fish at the Shul Seder. Why? My husband and I don't want unhappy participants at the Seder. We want everyone smiling, munching, and full. You want to be whole. My kids don't eat before the meal by the Seder. But the guests, the Shul guests, we don't have to be holy on their heads. They want to eat, go eat. That's what I'm trying to say. Do the Jewish laws, but with common sense. It's not like we're giving food on Yom Kippur. We're giving a little munchies during the Seder, so you don't have unhappy participants. Yes,
Very smart.
The Shul Seder, and we have a dessert table for the kiddies, and we always serve the kids right away at our Shul Seder. We don't hang up on ceremony. Oh, nobody eats before the meal. No, eat before the meal. We put all the dips on the table and the gefilte fish, and everyone munches. So then my husband doesn't feel guilty if he takes another few minutes to make another joke, That's the secret to our synagogue Seder. Keep the guests happy. Keep everyone happy, and you're happy.
That's good.
Holy and wait for the steps. You don't have to tell everyone that you're so holy and special. Do it. I tell the waiter, don't serve my kids. They won't eat before the meal. Just serve everyone else. And they know. And, that's what it is. So that's another great thing, is feeding the family. Now, one more quick thing. Does God care about your crumbs? Yes. Americans like to say, don't sweat the small stuff. But in our relationship with God and our relationship with people, it's always about the small stuff. I always say this. When was the last time you argued with your husband about global warming? When did you argue about, what do you argue about? You didn't leave me the car keys. Why didn't you pick up the cleaners? My dress is now stuck there for the next 10 days. I asked you to buy cucumbers. You couldn't buy cucumbers. You argue about the petty little things. That's life. It's the crumbs that make up relationships. So every crumb in the house hurts the relationship with God. Yes, it's about the crumbs. A crumb on Pesach is forbidden. God said, eliminate all the chametz, bring in the matzah, the Pesach items. So relationships is all about the little things. It's the little rose your husband bought you on your birthday. It's the little note you put in his suitcase when he's going on a business trip or you're going on a business trip. It's the little phone call during the day, I love you. It's never about the big things. We never argue about political parties and then we don't talk to each other for 3 days and 3 nights to our spouses. It's always about the stupidest, silly things. He came late for the dinner party. You forgot to pick up his suit. You didn't call this one. He didn't send out the bill. It's always about the silliest crumbs that destroy the relationship. So yes, the crumbs matter. They really, really matter. Everything matters. If it's in the Torah, it matters. So if you're wondering why God cares, like God cares about the crab and the shrimp, yes. Believe it or not, yes. It hurts the relationship. On your husband's birthday, he's allergic to Chinese. Are you going to take him to a Chinese restaurant because you love Chinese? I love Chinese, but he doesn't like Chinese. You have to take him to Italian. He likes Italian. So in our relationship with God, it's not always about what I like, what I want. You have to also think, what does God want? Think about it as a relationship. God looks away many times when you want something. And sometimes when God wants something, you have to do it. So yes. So that's the crumbs, So if you vacuum out the crumbs, what else for Pesach? Try your best. Use a lot of paper goods.
Oh, good.
Get some cleaning help, and the main thing is what I said last week: get yourself beautiful clothes, a pedicure, a manicure. Get your hair done. When you come to the Seder table, you are also a Seder guest. You're not the housekeeper, you're not the chef, you're not the wait staff. The whole family is at the Seder. You're not in the kitchen, you're not prepping the charosas. You are at the Seder with everyone else, all made up, beautiful makeup, beautiful clothing, beautiful shoes, sitting at the Seder like a queen because you're also free.
But how do you do that if you have to go in and out with the plates of gefilte fish or the soup?
I'll tell you how you do it.
Yeah, because
Okay?
I'm always in the kitchen.
First of all,
Me
this
too.
year it's
Me
Friday
too.
night.
And
So you have to cook everything before Shabbos. You're not allowed to cook before Shabbos.
Oh yeah, no.
Right. First of all, if you look at the steps of the Seder, the food is not till the end, till later.
Right. Yeah.
All those 15 steps, everything has to be on the table. The Seder table is set with everything necessary.
Okay.
And if you're missing the salt water because you forgot, send someone else into the kitchen. Send your husband into the kitchen. Why are you going into the kitchen? He can bring the salt water too.
Yeah, it's true.
Send your child into the kitchen. Honey, I forgot the romaine lettuce. Go bring me another plate of romaine lettuce. The mother of the house is the queen of the house. The queen of the house sits on her throne. And take this from somebody who has 11 children and always had to cook and clean. When it came to the Pesach Seder, the family has to see you at your spot at the table. This is pivotal to Jewish life, pivotal to relationships, pivotal to everything and anything you could imagine. You don't know how important this is. You have to be making Kiddush when everyone is making Kiddush. You're not in the kitchen during the Seder. Like Yom Kippur. Does the family go to shul and you sit home? No, you also have to fast. A woman is obligated in the mitzvah of Pesach. So why are you in the kitchen? Now, I'm not saying financially allowing it. Get help. Get help. Cut back on other things and get a little help for the Seder. Or when it's time to serve, everyone should be helping. Pesach is the woman's holiday. You be at the Seder table. Especially during the ceremonial parts. Later on, you have to supervise the ladling of the soup. Okay, you can go into the kitchen, take the soup off the warmer, the blech, because it's Shabbos, and ladle and supervise the ladling of the soup. But you should be at the Seder because the Seder is a lot of stuff going on before the food. And that's why everything is preset. Thursday night, your table is set. Friday morning, your food gets put out, all the prep food. And then you bring out a little later the maror, the charosat, you don't want it to get stale. And then you light your Shabbos candles, you go to shul, you daven, you come back and start the Seder. Or if you don't go to shul and you daven at home, then you start your Seder.
Do you start your cooking like Monday, say?
I'm koshering my kitchen on Wednesday morning, and I'm starting to cook Wednesday, or maybe, Tuesday night I'll kosher my kitchen, kosher everything with the blowtorch and my sinks and
Right.
everything, cover everything over. And Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, I'm going to be cooking on Wednesday and Thursday for the Seder. 2 days I cook.
Uh,
But I wish I could cook a Tuesday too. Maybe it'll be a miracle. I'll start cooking Tuesday if there's a miracle. But usually I can't. I just not enough prep, enough time for me to get my kitchen ready. But the synagogue kitchen is going to be ready Monday. So all the stuff for the synagogue Seder already is going to be prepping there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the synagogue Seder. Because we do a lot of in-house cooking for the Seder. Because we make something spectacular. So why give it over to the caterer when we can make it better?
right.
So yeah. So that's how we do it there. So
Who
like
cooks that, Freida? Freida, who cooks the synagogue Seder? You cook it? No.
no, I supervise the cooking. It's my recipes.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
Yeah. But
okay.
some of it we buy. Some of it I buy because there's too many people, too much food needed.
Oh, it's too much.
But
Yeah.
who you go local for certain things, or does it come from Brooklyn?
So all the fruits and vegetables wholesale, all the meat and poultry wholesale. If like Rabashkins, I've written it on the chats.